I'd like to make this video documenting some notes that I made at the lecture, which I am want to do. My track is to, when I go to lectures, is take notes, and did it again last night. So I went to the talk at the SVA Theater, Is Art History? A panel discussion on selected writings of Svetlana Alpers. And at the talk were two of her former students, Evelyn Lincoln and Richard Meyer. And I highlight some of these notes, and I'm going to go through some of these highlights. And at the end of the talk, I had stopped note-taking and pulled out my phone and shot a couple of videos of Alpers in the Q&A. And they were good enough for me to want to put up in the blog online, and I thought I would append it to this video looking over the notes. So typically the beginning introductions by her former students, Richard Meyer and Evelyn Lincoln, and some notable things that were said is about the importance of staying within your field, which I can relate to since my undergraduate was in architecture, and I made it a point long ago to complicate my education that way. So it was nice confirmation to hear that in people in other disciplines, especially the discipline of art history. It's nice to see. Also, the importance of not following in other people's footsteps. I like that too. I like originality. Who doesn't? But few people, well, I don't know if I should say that, few people. But there is a tendency for people to track monomaniacally on a kind of singular path to success. And this diversity is welcome to see, or the embrace of diversity. Question of the time is what she had coined back in 1977. In what way is art history? She is indeed a pioneer for a kind of a reevaluation of art history, and reminds me a bit of Francis Fukuyama's The End of History and the Last Man. Doing away with this concept of history, which in a way made us what we are today, and it's fortunate if you think that's good, unfortunate if you think history is important. Later on, she amends this idea a bit, which is interesting, but I'll get to that soon. Continuing, writing to figure something out, very, very laudable, very nice. And interestingly too, that even though she's part of the vanguard that ended the dominant narrative in art history, which the good part of it is that it allows for alternative narratives, but the downside is that it enabled an idea that we've arrived at the end of history, and history is no longer important that way, which is unfortunate. She was not on the bandwagon for everything, and she was a kind of independent thinker when it came to joining the ranks of feminism as it evolved, and that she Meyer said that she did not identify as a feminist, and later on she confirmed that. So interesting that she didn't believe in the male gaze, and that identity becomes so weaponized today, and that people become self-righteous about it, which is indeed what happened. She said that I'm a person before I'm a woman. And I was a woman in a completely masculine field. So even though she contended with that, she insisted on herself as her intellectuality standing alone outside her gender. She said that I was for people. Interesting statement that the substance of her work is larger than passion, which would be interesting to unpack. Her influences. And one of her largest influences is E.H. Gombrich, which influenced on me too, in a lesser way maybe, but the book Art and Illusion I read and devoured in the years leading up to going to grad school. So in my transition from architecture to art, Gombrich was a figure in my mind. And I was very happy to see that he influenced her in a very good way. And she related that Gombrich insisted that historians should find good questions, which is a very healthy attitude. And I haven't read her writings yet, and I really want to after going to this talk and hearing her speak. And there was a continued emphasis put upon the importance of writing clearly and without ornament. And she described herself as a very economical writer, and a very hesitant one as well, that we shouldn't swap. She said that we shouldn't swap them, I guess, her writing with words. Very nice, actually. Very respectable. I don't know who Lawrence Gowing is, or maybe I should, but I don't. I probably do, but don't. But a nice little quote here is that in art history or criticism, it's the tendency in England for painters to become the critics, while in the USA, poets are the ones who tend to become critics. Interesting observation. Back to Gombrich, you can't define what art is. There are only artists, which is interesting, and also to the idea, this continuing urge to define and the urge to not define. That art is a famously difficult word to pin down, which I totally agree. An idea that I've reflected on recently because I've been reading Saul Ostro's writing in Tussle magazine, and I'm on my third book with Thierry Dedoux's work, starting with Duchamp's Telegram, and now Kant after Duchamp. And again, they go right to this problem, and like a monkey on a coconut trying to crack it open. Also, back to the end of art history. Again, it's said many times during this talk, but that art history is at an end. It had a very short lifetime during the 19th century. But was amended, this idea of the end of art history, to say that the art history, she said, the art history I was trained in is over, which is an important caveat. I think in this caveat, it allows for alternative histories, other people to write, rather than to make that very Fukuyama kind of statement and people taking it literally, which is the problem of people interpreting your work, either as a writer or artist. It's something you can't control, and yet you do have an influence on culture that way. So these ideas become dangerous for the people who take it literally, and that's my point. We are all outsiders. If you're producing a book that's worth being read, you're an outsider. I like that idea. And in this larger art world where everyone wants to become scratching the doors to get into the insider status, I was with a friend the other day who we were touring shows in Tribeca, and he said something interesting, that the observation that everybody he meets is constantly trying to figure out how to game the system, or how to get in, whatever this idea in is in the art world. And it's unfortunate, because you're dealing with people that don't have eyes on the ball, aren't really in the game. And this preoccupation of outsider, insider, you just really just pay attention to art, and you're better off that way. Unfortunately, it's a minority view. And she went on to say that she's more into making than into provoking a response. She got into New York City in 1999, meeting a community of artists and critics. I have to say parenthetically that all three of these people have roots in California. Interesting, the Berkeley area and Stanford, which is the hometown, I guess, for this discussion, I guess. That the art being made in the 2000s, now I wrote 2000, 2001, but I think maybe they meant in the 2000s, that the art made in recent art was much more persuasive than it is now, which is an indication to a sense of decline, which is unfortunate, but true. Going on to say that the air is out of it. I think I know the sentiment, and I think a lot of our people watching this might too. This idea of a kind of zombie formalism, or there's many idiot lights on our dashboard, and I think that's what this is about. And praise for painting, which is nice to hear, and that painters have a past to respond to, which is what they were trying to say. I think that there was a richer field to talk about in painting versus, say, photography or film or something like that, which confuses me, because I think she did write about Walker Evans and stuff like this. So, and the last note here in my notes is clouded in dark gray, which is sort of indications of a negative vibe. There seems to be too much to look at today. In the sea of images, nobody's looking. And then artists are preoccupied with making traps to capture the audience. Which, we're in a sea of things. Everybody, there's been a kind of supernova of production, and which makes me think that back in the art world of, say, the early 30s, 40s, 50s, even up to the time when I was in LA, you could go to one place, and in those long ago days before my time, you could go to one bar and meet all the players, all the significant people in the art world. In LA, in my LA of the 80s to 90s, earlier on, you could visit one locale and pretty much see all the shows there is to see in one evening. And then as the 90s became the 2000s and the aughts, it was too much to take in increasingly, and being overwhelmed by too many choices, I think, is become all too common. Everybody knows about this today in all media, kind of being awash in a sea of images, a sea of information, the dark side of the information age. And now, a couple of videos that I shot during the Q&A session Alpers said some interesting things, memorable.
But we do, after all, without art historians there to support it, we do have a hell of a lot of marvelous art in the world, and there it is. So someone will pay attention to it. I mean, you know, we're not in a good moment. I mean, who could argue that we're living in a good moment now, right? I suspect it's not worse than the world. I think the world is usually pretty bad. We're just very aware right now, here and now, of how bad it can be. But I'm not quite sure what your question is. I mean, not having art history isn't going to destroy the old art. We do need, I think, better, I wish better art were being made just now. But, you know, one of my sort of taglines is the possibility of painting. I don't think painting is going to die out. It's there, and somebody will do it. So basically, I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I just think this is a very sad time.
An idea that writing substitutes for the work of art to me, but the distance between art and writing is the acknowledgement of that is one that actually can lead to insights. Or, you know, and I think that's very beautiful. But a lot of art historians or people who write about art, I don't know if they know that.
Well, art history isn't a writer's discipline.
But but it could, that's what I learned from you. It could be. No, and from Tim and other people at Berkeley, like, make it an effing writer's discipline. Don't just have it
Tim,
T.J. Clark, sorry.
He overwrites.
Now,
wish he'd shut up.
I know, it's too much now.
So we have one last question.
It's hard in our world. But I think difference is an essential nature of people in different countries, people of different backgrounds. They are really different. It's not diverse, it is different. And that's what we have to face and deal with in the world. And it's very, very often very painful, but also productive. No, I think there's a real problem. I mean, there is a danger, a problem in, I mean, because words and images are different. Now you see, the semiotic way of looking at things does not accept that. So there are many writers on art who feel very comfortable writing an art because they turn the art already into something linguistic. But I think art is not linguistic. I mean, I think that's completely wrong. Valheim was wonderful about that, and I had somebody who was a philosopher who stated that well. It's not so. Art is not a linguistic, I don't think turning art into a linguistic product so that you can use words easier about it has much purpose from my point of view. You just let it be, and letting it be is not as a verbal artifact. So I think they're separate. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I left literature as a study was, first of all, I just got exhausted by endless interpretation, but also it's the mess of using words to interpret words. The elegance of using words, there is an elegance about using words to address something visual.
And maybe
it's a distance.
Yeah, the distance.
And I was going to call it the mismatch.